You're taught that you can fix anything, especially in a young, healthy body, and then you just stand there and you can't. Sometimes the physical wounds are so incredible, you have a hard time fixing those, but then the wounds of the soul, you can't fix those. As caregivers, we're very good at compartmentalizing things because that's what you need to do. If somebody comes into the emergency room or is severely injured, or you're in the operating room and something goes wrong, you've just got to snap into, I've been trained to do this, I've been trained to do that. I mean, that's not the time to be in touch with your feelings.
We were walking down the dirt road, and I remember being with two of my buddies, and one was my roommate and the other one was just a friend, and a mortar had gone off right when we got out of the dining facility.
I remember one time very succinctly as we were getting mortared, and it came very close and it was hitting the hospital, and then the strikers went out and they went after the guys. They got a beat on where they were, and then there was a big firefight, and they brought in the strikers who would take care of them, and then they brought in the insurgents, and then we realized that here, right next to each other in the ER, we were taking care of the guys that went out and saved us, and right next to them were the guys that, 15 minutes earlier were trying to kill us. So that's the experience of a lot of the military uniformed healthcare providers. When I got back from Iraq, I started having problems with intractable migraines, and was on multiple medications, and actually got to the point where the provider I was seeing got very frustrated and said, well, I've given you this, I've given you what we've got, and said the next thing is I can give you a prescription for Percocet, which you can just take whenever you need it.
When I got home from Iraq, it was really hard to integrate back into real life, and the way that I coped was drinking a lot.
If you look at the culture and some of the more obvious values and behaviors of the yoga world and the military world, you're going to see, pretty straight black and white opposites. That when you bring those two worlds together, the alchemy of opposites happens. This amazing thing that transcends any self-righteousness of yoga and any self-righteousness of the military just dissolves, and there's just this this stillness.
I thought of myself as a nice person and a nice doctor, but I walked around so angry all the time. And I couldn't sleep, and which made me more irritable. So it was. Sorry.
Trauma creates this sense of helplessness. We have to find a way to cope, and finding a way of coping is to disconnect from your body. We didn't even call it PTSD, or nobody talked about it.
PTSD is really a disturbance of the entire human organism, and that is that the whole person starts organizing its internal life, including its immune system, its arousal system, its alertness system, around the expectation that trauma is going to come back. So it's a diagnosis that's focused on the fact that people get stuck in the past and feel that the danger is not over yet. That's the core issue about having been traumatized.
To talk about PTSD, is post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's really, once you get beyond the physical stuff, it's more like a post-traumatic spiritual disorder.
To my mind, basically all good treatments of trauma are somatic treatments where the whole organism, the whole body, every aspect of our life is involved. And in some ways yoga comes as close to that as anything.
I had been interested in yoga before, had done a lot of Tai Chi and other things, but that's when I really got serious about it.
What happens in yoga is that the body and the mind come back into balance on their own. And so the healing takes place without the patient's involvement in the sense of actually seeing what's happening with the trauma. They practice the techniques, they work through, they come into balance, and the trauma is eased. That's the beauty and that's the real attraction of a non-talk therapy practice like yoga.
And it was transformative, both on the physical level, because I got a handle on the headaches, but then it was more transformative because it got at the root of what the headaches were about and what the anger was about.
So one of the things that we're finding is that yoga builds resilience, the ability to adapt, the ability to tolerate stress. And so it's quite possible if military personnel were to practice yoga techniques, they would be able to increase their resilience to stress and perhaps even trauma.
I was only 19 years old and I was just this kid alone, thousands of miles away from my family, not really understanding what was going on. It wasn't until I started practicing yoga that I could really do the work that I needed to do as far as my past in Iraq.
The title of that flute piece that I just played is called Soldier's Heart, which is the term that was used in the Civil War to describe the emotional impact of war experiences. Now we call it PTSD. Yoga helps us to become more dynamic, more flexible, better able to respond to what's happening inside of us, what's happening outside of us. And that's what we would call yoga off the mat. Our ability to be out in the world and be dynamic and be flexible and be engaged and have a body that responds, have a physiology that is flexible and dynamic.
The caregivers are able to feel renewed and connected themselves and like they're not running on empty. The people who they care for are going to get much better care. They're being cared for by a person who's feeling healthy and balanced and basically well.
When you talk to caregivers, they'll say, oh yes, very important, oh yes, we do that. So it's something we're very good at lip service, but not doing. So what Robin was talking last night about what the program would do, I think it's perfect because that's a group that does not walk the walk. I mean, across the board, you know.
The mindfulness begins with us. Is to really cultivate our own mindfulness, and so that becomes the flow between two human beings where your mindfulness becomes part of the interaction.